Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Watson back for the 241st Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are in the middle of a fascist coup, and we're going to be talking all about that. We have somebody at ground zero, Mimi German, our poet laureate, surrounded by rattlesnakes of the crawly kind out in the east and the governmental kind right there in Portland downtown. So we're going to have a report from Portland. We have just so much to talk about. I do want, to my mind, in my world as a news guy, the number one story really is the takeover of CBS News. And we have Dave Saltman, who is the ultimate hero insider from with an incredible broadcast history, who's going to talk to us about that. We have Carl Grossman and I put out a major piece on nuclear drones, and I came to the conclusion, by the way, that drones now have redefined the entire energy picture. And if you'll hold on one second, I've got Greg Palast on the phone. Steve and Mike.
Yeah, we'll keep it going. Yeah, Greg is a wonderful guest, and hopefully he's getting the link from Sluggo. And we know this isn't necessarily the best radio, but we promise if you stick around, it'll be worth it. As a public service announcement, our very own Stephen Caruso reminds us to check your voting registration. You can do it online. You can, I guess, call up your Board of Elections, but it's very important because people are being routinely thrown off the voting rolls.
Yes,
So
and we're
can you
gonna
do
we,
that?
Last day in Ohio to register. States may vary. Some states you can register at the polls, very few and far between, but please make sure you're registered before the November 4th election countrywide. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you,
and
Stephen.
next week, I just talked with Greg Palast. Next week, he's the man on that issue, and that next week we're gonna have Greg Palast on with us to talk about election protection. And because if anybody knows anything about election protection, it's Greg Palast. So I just got off the phone with him, and he will be with us to go into great detail. He will be wearing his fedora, which does double as a yarmulke tonight, as Sukkot for all of you who celebrate such things. And it's going to be starting exactly as our call ends. So we will end tonight at 7 Eastern Time, 4 Pacific Time. And I know Mimi is going to go run out to her sukkah and shoo off all the rattlesnakes. So, but boy, well, first up, before I lose track, I did read today that Loretta Swit, who I loved from MASH. She was such a great character, has passed away. And there was a discussion of her in the hospital, and she was ailing, and she asked in her hospital bed that they play a couple of episodes from MASH just for old times, and then she passed away within a couple of hours. So I'm glad she went happy. That was Lieutenant, was it Lieutenant Hot Lips? Was she lieutenant? I don't remember her rank, but
I think
somebody
she was a major.
major, right?
Major.
Major Houlihan, right? And Hot Lips. Otherwise, she was fabulous, and we will miss her. So, thank you, Major Hot Lips, and I hope you have a safe passage and come back soon, please. Okay, I got so much to go over. I know we're joined by Dave Saltman, who is the ultimate insider in the major networks. And we want, in my world, as I say, the number one thing happening is the transition to at CBS. There is a new head of CBS. People, the media on her is she's going to be right wing. She is a lesbian, and I don't know if that predicts her politics at all. Mimi's saying no. So you can tell us about that when we click in with David here. Also, by the way, and we're going to talk about the second hour. We're joined by the great Carl Grossman. Second hour. We're going to talk about nukes and energy. And Carl Grossman and I have a piece out today. There she was. Oh my God, Loretta Swit. She was really something. And again, she just passed away. So our fondest wishes to her. In the second hour, we're going to talk about energy. We got Carl Grossman with us. And Japan, I lived in Japan for a while. It was an amazing place. Japan has just gotten its first female prime minister, which, if you know anything about Japan, that's really amazing. There's no female role in the Japanese culture for all these centuries, and here we have a female prime minister in Japan, but she's totally pro-nuclear. It's like Maggie Thatcher has been reincarnated in Japan. So we're going to talk about that in the second hour as well, and voting issues which Steve has raised and Mike. But let's start with our poem with Mimi German, please, our poet laureate, and then Mimi, an in-person account from the war zone in Portland, Oregon. Okay, Mimi, please.
Yeah, so this week's poem was meant for levity because we in Portland are doing a great job, as usual, making fun of fascists. Because sometimes you just got to make fun. You got to send in the clowns when they send in the clowns. So this poem is for all of my brothers and sisters in Portland, and it
Where
goes
you
like,
are. You are in the
I'm actually, I'm currently, I came down here just a couple days ago. I'm in rattlesnake country, Sluggo.
oh, you're in the east, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, you can take the girl out of Portland, but you can't take the
Oh,
Portland out of the girl, right?
yeah, I'll be back up there next week.
All right, go
So,
ahead.
okay. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Antifa threw milkshakes and got him to fall. All the king's horses and tear gas and flashbangs couldn't stop protests against fascists at all.
Hey, there you go. Very good. So I just read just minutes before coming on here a naked bike ride. Oh, that's great. Oh my God, though, you gotta.
So
I
we
don't
have,
think.
Sluggo, we have a naked bike ride every year. So
Oh.
the naked bike ride happens all the time. I mean, that's like a regular event. But this year, the planners are planning the naked bike ride now so that they can meet up with if the National Guard actually get to Portland, which is part of the story for today. Will they or won't they get to Portland? Because Judge Immergut, who is a Trump-appointed judge, has said twice now in one weekend. Saturday was no, the Oregon National Guard may not come in. To which Trump replied, "F you, we're going to send them in from California." So Sunday night, Judge Immergut had to have an emergency session with the attorneys, and she declared, I have this written, she declared it illegal to send in any National Guard from any state into Oregon. And she was furious that the Trump admins tried to pull this one on her. And so that's a really big deal right now. In the meantime, supposedly the California National Guard have been sent, but there's a ruling that like they can't come in. So we're really on this tightrope wire right now with what's going to happen. And Judge Immergut is incredibly vocal about how illegal it would be to blow off her order. And that's where things stand right now.
It's
Texas,
unbelievable.
yeah, Texas may also send some of their troops, or they want to, their National Guard our way as well. So there was an interesting thing that was written recently, I think this morning or yesterday, by Elizabeth Goitein, I don't know how to say her name, a senior director at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU's law school, said that the California National Guard troops sent to Portland were legally part of the federal armed forces, which meant that the president could send them into any state without that state's consent. Here's the clincher: as long as the federalization and deployment were otherwise lawful. But then she said that by that reasoning, detailed in Immergut's ruling concerning the Oregon National Guard, the deployment of California troops to Portland was not lawful. So the statute under which the president dispatched the troops is section 12406 of Title 10 of the U.S. Code, specifies certain conditions that must be present to justify the action. Judge Immergut found that those conditions were not present in Portland. So every single official in Portland, the governor, the mayor, the chief of police, to the press, has all said that none of these things are happening that Trump is, making up, are happening.
Oh my God. Well, I just saw Stephen Miller in a press conference, and he looked like a guys that I did some medical counseling at rock concerts where people were having bad trips. And he looked like someone who was having a bad trip. I mean, this guy is a complete out the door fascist, and he's making up stuff that was allegedly happening in all across the country, claiming that ICE agents are being attacked by Antifa, whoever the hell Antifa is, and that therefore they needed military protection.
Right.
And these guys are just completely over the top on this stuff. And I will say, and I'll jump in real quick, Mimi, in Chicago, I just read this. ICE, ready? ICE is tear gassing the Chicago police. I will say that again. ICE is tear gassing the Chicago police. Where is Dick Daley? Where is Dick Daley now that we need him? Go ahead.
This is my hope. So first of all, Saturday night, the cops have been told, okay, we are a sanctuary city, Portland. So the cops can't, by law, in a sanctuary city, help out the feds. They do anyway, most of the time. Like during Black Lives Matter, they absolutely help the feds. Right now, what they're doing is staying on the sidelines on bikes primarily. It's cops on bikes, whatever. And they stay to the side until some, arguments go down, and then they come in and they kettle everybody. So they're not on the sidelines. They're pretending to be on the sidelines. In the meantime, they are also getting tear gassed, like Saturday night for no reason. And then Sunday daytime, tear gas was everywhere. And everybody who was there, from protesters to the media, said absolutely nothing was happening, except that a car from ICE wanted to get out, and protesters, which is what we do at the ICE building, we stand in front of the driveway where their cars come in and out to try to prevent them from coming in and out. And so there was a huge tear gas display of shenanigans, and in the process, 2 80-year-olds
I'm 80.
They got knocked down. The woman has a big incision, had a big cut in her head, and they had to be taken to the hospital. But my hope is that the cops actually see what is going on, which they are, and say, this is insane. We have had our chief of police. Now, I am no fan of the police whatsoever, but the chief of police has said out loud many times since Trump has been threatening to send in the National Guard that nothing is too hard to handle with what is going down. Like basically nothing's happening. The cops can handle whatever might be happening, and that's the end of that. So I don't know. Are we at this place right now where maybe the cops are going to jump ship? I doubt it, because they're cops. And that also goes, Sluggo, before I forget, to this lesbian who is now running, is going to be a media mogul. Just because she's a lesbian, you know? It's like saying that all women are for peace when we know the Marjorie Taylor Greens, et cetera, and that Kristi Noem's, even more to the point, are women and can do and play the evil character in spades.
Wow. Well, first of all, now, when you say you're not a fan of the police, I hope you're not referring to Sting. I mean, he's
No music intended.
oh, okay, all right. That we got that clarified. I knew it wasn't, but anyway. But well, this is mind-boggling that the ICE is gassing urban police departments. You know, that's not going to play well in Chicago. Having been clubbed personally by the Chicago police in the streets of Chicago in 1968, um, I don't think that ICE wants to mess with the Chicago police. Admittedly, Dick Daley is gone, but nonetheless, and J.B. Pritzker, we got to keep it's J.B. Pritzker versus J.D. Vance. The governor of Illinois is not happy about this, and I don't think the governor of Oregon has been too happy either. I mean, how's she been?
No, Tina Kotek is she's livid also about this, and she had her famous 7-minute conversation with Trump in the car, and I don't know who was in the car, if she was in the car or if Trump was in the car, but apparently that's where that talk went down, and that's when he said to her, "But Governor," he probably said Tina, or maybe he said, "Hey babe," I don't know, because he's Trump, but he said. But that's not what the television is telling me. She's like, nothing is going on. And he's like, but that's not what the television is telling me. That's not what my people are telling me. And she was like, I don't know what to tell you. This is not happening. None of what you have said is happening. And we do not want the National Guard. So she's been very consistent, as has the mayor and Ron Wyden and the chief of police repeatedly.
Oh my God, who would have envisioned this? Before I lose track, I mean, I got so many notes here. I want to note that Donald Trump, I don't know how many of you noticed, and Ruth Strauss and then Mike will get to you, but I want to make sure we get this in. And most of you probably know this, but it is completely unprecedented in American history. With the shutdown, which we want to talk about, emails have been sent to federal employees. And in the emails being sent by the Trump regime, and we got to stop calling it an administration, it's a regime. And Trump is not merely an authoritarian, he's a dictator. Bernie has got to stop using this wimpy word authoritarian. This guy's a dictator, for plain and simple, right? In the emails being sent by the federal government to the workers who now lost everything, the emails blame the Democrats for causing the shutdown. There is a federal law against this. It's called the Hatch Act. You can't politicize official correspondence from the federal government. People have gone to jail for this. And he has sent out literally tens of thousands of emails blaming the shutdown on the Democrats. And I did see, and I can't let this go by. Elon Musk, who gets worse every day, they just announced that he's worth $500 billion personally, blamed the judge that you cited, the Trump-appointed judge, for
Judge
being a
Immergut.
dictator, for overruling. He says we now have a dictatorship of judges who are overruling the rightful power of Der Fuhrer here.
Well, Sluggo, there was also a judge whose house on Saturday was potentially firebombed. I mean, they're
Right.
looking into it. They don't know yet what it
Well,
was.
I just saw a little piece. They claim it's not arson, but come on, really, what a coincidence, just like the judge whose son was murdered on their doorstep, for God's sakes. Okay, Ruth Strauss. We need the report from Alabama here. Ruth Strauss, please.
Well, it's going to west of the Mississippi, and north of the Mason-Dixon line. Okay, so the first thing is, I don't know whether I've said this before here, but it's one of my favorite gripes. Stephen Miller, his so big on immigration, his grandparents escaped the pogroms in Russia or East coming here.
Yeah.
He is the
And he's also from Southern California, Stephen Miller. I mean, it's outrageous. We have 70 people with us, Ruth. And by the way, just to correct you, Ruth, I know you're wonderfully brilliant, but you right now
protested in
you are not north of the Mason-Dixon line. You're in Southern
King's Parade, because this whole thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ruth, you're cutting in
Okay,
and out.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're in and out.
Can
Now
you
you're
hear
out
me?
again. Yes.
Can you hear me, or is it broken?
Ruth, we're going to come back to you.
What is it? If it's broken.
Okay.
Yeah,
You go again.
let's go to Dorothy and Ruth. Get to a place where you have a better connection so we can hear you. We'd love
Dorothy
to hear
Reik.
what you have to say.
Hi.
Dorothy Reik, please.
I just wanted to say, I don't know, I came in a little late in case nobody haven't said this, that finally Pritzker is suing. Finally, after weeks of complaining, he's finally filed a lawsuit
Well, good for him.
against the, to keep the National Guard out of Chicago.
Well, as I said, I mean, having been beaten up twice in Chicago, once by a pro-war guy and once by the Chicago police, the idea that federal agents would be gassing the Chicago police I couldn't, if I was on acid, I couldn't make that up.
Oh, but you couldn't make up that they would rappel down from a helicopter into an apartment building and take children out in the street. And zip ties. You couldn't make that up either. So
we have to talk about that. Yes, that is a big deal. I read, and it's a friend of Dave Saltman's here who's with us. There was an airborne assault by federal agents on a public housing building, where they came down. Does anybody else want to describe this? Can anybody else describe this?
I can describe it.
Go ahead.
They
72
rappelled
people.
down from helicopters. They also piled out of trucks, of moving van kind of trucks. They ran into this building. They grabbed everybody. They separated children from their parents. They zip tied people. Even, they didn't ask anybody who's a citizen, who's not, or if they did, they didn't pay any attention. They put these children into a dark van and left them sitting in the street for hours. They ransacked the apartments. They destroyed electronic equipment and bedding. They threw people's documents all over the halls, and they just wrecked the whole building and everything that was in it. And these people were standing out in the street, some of them naked, some of them half clothed, citizens, non-citizens. They arrested 37 people. We don't know what they arrested them for. And I think that's finally what motivated Pritzker to decide to file a lawsuit instead of just jawboning on TV. But this is
right. This is
real.
Just, and I saw some idiot on I don't know, Fox, some other thing, some right-wing commentator saying they've got a name now for some alleged drug dealing cartel. Yeah, well, then where'd they come up with that? I mean, really, who are the leaders of this? I mean, come on, it's all just Orwellian garbage. And this guy was saying, well, which would you rather have, these people being protected? This is protection by the federal military, or at the mercy of this drug cartel. I mean, no mention of the Constitution, no mention of the Fourth Amendment. None of these people were mentioned in an arrest warrant or a search and seizure warrant that is required under the Constitution, or used to be. And this is making up the names of these alleged drug cartels is insane. He's now blown up 4 boats. Apparently, he wants to start a war with Venezuela at this point in time. It's unbelievably, it's unreal. Ruth, we'll try you again. There you go, another alleged drug boat. They blow up the boat, they kill the people, and there's no evidence of anything. That they were involved in any kind of illegal activity. Ruth Strauss, try you again real quick, please.
Thank you so much. Okay, so part of the King's thing needs to be SCOTUS, because what's going to happen is with these sanctuary cities, the federal judges are great, including the Republican nominated ones. But when it goes to the Supreme Court, they're going to F up again. So, they're just as much of authoritarians or, dictators as Trump. And by the way, Ian Masters had a woman named Lisa Graves on last week who has done an expose of John Roberts. She's written a book, but the interview was absolutely jaw-dropping, and people should look that up. The other thing is, good luck to that lesbian. Larry Ellison is about to buy CNN, Paramount, TikTok, and CBS, so won't be much choice there. And
Well, we
guess
got Dave Saltman on with us to talk about that.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well, I'll stop here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, great, Ruth. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. We've got 75 people with us. Mike and Steve, did you want to jump in? And then we'll go back to Dorothy. And Myla has a hand. Steve, did you want to jump in?
Mike.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that this is all very chilling, and to put it in even more chilling context, Trump and his nitwit frat boy Secretary of War have talked about using U.S. cities as proving grounds for the military.
Right, test
And
grounds.
so yeah, well, it's the same thing. It's they're going to send troops in.
Training grounds. Training
Yeah.
grounds.
Yeah, well, it just keeps getting worse, in my opinion, because
Right.
so what you're saying is they're going to teach the military, which is, they got one job really, is to kill people, and sending them loose in our cities to go after what Trump has called the enemy within. And it's fascinating to me. I watch a lot of these YouTubes where people on the left will be debating people on the right. And the people on the right are saying, but Biden used an auto pen, or Facebook kept people from lying about COVID. So what Trump is doing is just, but Biden did worse. And it's like, really?
Really?
If Biden did worse, put him in jail too, but they can't prove anything. So it's just horrendous. And I do think that a lot of this is a distraction from how bad the economy is going under Trump, and also how Pam Bondi said that she was going to release the Epstein files. They were on her desk. She was just looking through them. Then all of a sudden, these nitwits realized that Trump's all over those files. It's like they didn't see that coming. I'll close with this. Jamie Raskin said that not only are these people fascists, but they're also incompetent. I'm trying to remember I think he used the term morons, so, maybe that'll save us. Maybe they're so inept, they won't be able to get out of their own way.
Well, there is a woman who has laid out a very lengthy on-camera interview who claims that Trump sexually abused her when she was 14. So I don't see what else can come out of the Epstein files that would transcend that. And also, by the way, the Supreme Court just ruled against Ghislaine Maxwell on something. I think she wanted catered meals in her prison cell, but whatever it was. But and the other one, real quick thing, Mimi, I've read a fair amount on nonviolence, and the consensus in the if there is such a thing as consensus in the nonviolent community, is that one of the greatest weapons to use against a dictator is ridicule. And God knows Donald Trump offers opportunities for that. And so your naked bike ride, and by the way, I hope to God the guys who participate in the naked bike ride at least wear an athletic supporter. I mean, please, come on, guys, be a little sane. But we won't go into that. Amira Reeson, go ahead, and then we can go with Mickey, and then Ruth and Dorothy. And we got Dave Saltman waiting in the wings to talk about the new head of CBS, which to me is terrifying. Go ahead, Myla, please.
Well, Ghislaine Maxwell had appealed to the Supreme Court. She was not saying that she hadn't committed the crimes that she was convicted of. She was not saying that she was innocent. What she was saying was that because of that sweetheart deal
Right.
that Jeffrey Epstein had gotten, that made her immune from prosecution, and she wanted her prosecution overturned because the deal that Acosta made with Epstein all those years ago supposedly gave immunity to anyone associated with the crimes committed by Jeffrey Epstein, and so the court refused to touch it. They're not touching it at the moment. That was what that was about. Now, I raised my virtual hand earlier to talk about the invasion of that apartment building in
Yeah, really horrible.
this morning on the majority report. I learned that it was the apartment owners who had called in the ICE because they were facing all kinds of there were a lot of violations that they were not keeping up, they were not maintaining that property. And so it was sort of a way, according to what I heard this morning, it was a way of them getting around those violations. And just one other thing, I was glad to hear that Lisa Graves had been mentioned. Amazing court accountability action is her organization, and it'd be great to have her on sometime soon.
Let's do it. Absolutely. And, that's a heck of a way to avoid, a citation from the city. Well, I'll have the federal troops, arrest everybody in the building with no warrants, no named, nothing named, nothing legal. And the name of an alleged drug dealing cartel that sounds like a perfume. I mean, it's absolutely sickening. I do want to add also, by the way, Lev Parnas, who's been on this call with us. He's Ukrainian. He used to be a close friend of Trump, and now he's, gone, thank God, in the other direction. He says, and this is another completely astounding but credible thing. He says that at the meeting that Hegseth called with all the generals and admirals and military brass, that Trump had everybody facially scanned during the meeting, and that they're using AI to interpret which generals reacted how to Trump's speech. Does everybody have that? I mean, he face scanned the people in the audience who, and I saw there was a piece that claimed they anonymously interviewed the generals, and admirals after the speech, and not one of them said that Trump's speech was in any way, shape, or form decent. And Trump, according to Lev Parnas, and we can follow this up, was face scanning them to gauge their reactions to his speech. I'll just leave it at that. Mickey Leader, go ahead, Mickey, and then we'll go back to Dorothy.
Can you
Mickey?
hear? Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Hi. I watched a lot of different coverage of that unbelievable Gestapo-like what they did to Jews in Germany in the middle of the night and rounded them up and threw them on trains. And actually, they did it in France. It was called La Rafle, and they threw thousands of people into the cycling stadium. It terrified me. And some of the reports, people who were there and talking, said they separated the Hispanics from the Black population. And the Black people who said, we're not migrants, we're born here, we're citizens, we don't care. We're going to check and see if there are any outstanding warrants and we're going to arrest you. So,
And they did it to kids.
right,
Kids.
babies zip tied and thrown into a U-Haul van, separated from their parents. When is the general population going to wake up and say, holy crap, we have Hitler and all of his henchmen? you know, and just fighting to make sure that nobody steals our votes. Hell, do we think we're going to have votes? I think he's just going to keep going until somebody stops him. And I'm sure that those generals and admirals were not stupid enough to realize that any reaction on their faces was going to be somehow recorded. And
Well, I
I
don't know
thought
how,
they,
I mean, it'd take a hell of a lot of emotional control to not react to that kind of thing. You
well,
know,
the few things that of the main channels scanning them, they were stoic. So
they
I'm
were to
hoping,
us, but AI, to AI, they may have been, we'll see. Who
yeah.
knows? It's a good point, Mickey. Thank you. We're going to
Wait,
Lynn.
wait, wait. There was one other thing I wanted to
Yeah.
report back. Rockland County and Westchester County in New York are working their tuchuses off trying to get the assembly people to pass proposals. I sent it to you, Mike, the whole thing with all of the different proposals, so that we can protect our voting in every way you can. You know, where the don't buy those machines. If you have those machines, don't let anybody go in and touch them. Don't use them. Get paper ballots. If somebody's, whether it's a short, small amount of votes you lose by, or a lot, do not concede. You know, it's a whole list of things. If you want to send it out or post it, I don't know how to do that. But look at it, because the assembly people in the state of New York are not passing it. The Senate passed it. We're desperately trying to protect our election system. It's not everybody should get out and vote.
All right. Well,
It's everything we've talked about for weeks and weeks, and it's very well put together. And
okay.
I want you to share it for me. I can't. I don't know how to do it.
Talk to Steve afterwards and figure it out, but we need to have the thing. We have 80
Would it-
people with us. We'll go back to Dorothy, then Lynn, that's it, David,
Harvey,
and then I want to get Dave Saltman
Hey,
in to talk.
Sluggo, Steve has been waiting to get in
Oh,
for a little
Steve,
while.
yeah, go
you
ahead then.
forgot. Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Maxwell is in Trump's back pocket just in case. So she's going to kind of like defend him against the Epstein files if they ever come out. AOC is saying that the Republican facade is just what it is. It's a facade. They don't have any power except they want you to think they have power. Constitutionally, they're in the hole. So it's an abuse of constitutional power with this facade, and that's all they can do. They're not using warrants to arrest people. The whole thing is just rolling, and nobody's stopping them. But it's
Well,
just a facade.
yeah, well, at this point, the
Thanks.
governors and the mayors are critically important, and we'll see what happens here. Dorothy again, then Lynn Feinerman, then David, and I want to go to Dave Saltman,
Yeah,
please.
so I didn't get a chance to read the article, but there's an article, I forget where, about how Trump is hiding these detainees from their attorneys. So I don't
Yes.
know, maybe they're not arrested, but they seem to be incarcerated.
Well,
Um,
this is pure Gestapo. I mean, there's just
and
and Elon Musk complaining that judges are getting in the way, is a pure confirmation
yeah,
that these
well,
guys
Steve
do
Miller
not
is running
believe
the
it.
country, it seems to me. But it's
No, I,
interesting that Ludnick got interviewed and said that Epstein was blackmailing everybody, and that's how he got all his money.
yes, that's been he clearly filmed a lot of people, and so the whole world is waiting for footage of Donald Trump assaulting a 14-year-old girl. That's what the whole world is waiting for. That's and what the Epstein files are all about, as best we can tell. But we'll see. Thank you, Dorothy. Lynn Feinerman, David Sonneman, and then I want to go to Dave Saltman, please, who's been patiently waiting to talk to us about CBS, which could be the most. All we need is for CBS to turn into another Pravda. Lynn Feinerman, go ahead, and we'll go to Dave Saltman, please.
Yes, I want to just recognize that Mickey Leader is talking about something that is, very, very disturbing and very upsetting. And to that end, I have put a link in the chat to an AI version of Hegseth lecturing the generals and the soldiers, which I hope will give you all a big smile and maybe even a chuckle. also, I want to just bring up one other thing, and that is that perhaps the worst executive order, as he calls them, of the rump is that one which prohibits speech about various topics, including capitalism and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm most concerned about that because I think that that can be used easily to send in troops, ICE, whatever, to do what they are doing to immigrants and other innocents, to protesters, and to begin arresting people for bringing up any of the topics that the rump doesn't want to hear about. So that's my little bit.
Really? Well, to that end, I want to talk to Dave Saltman. We'll come back. I hope you, thank you, Lynn. And we do look forward to that documentation on New York. We want to see if we can get it nailed down. And I want to also mention we've been joined by Alyssa Matros, who's a Chicago native, and we can ask her later what she thinks about the Chicago police being gassed by ICE. And Alyssa and I were jointly gassed by the Chicago police. I never thought that the feds would come in and gas them, but we'll see. Dave Saltman, you have worked for CBS and among all the other networks. What can you tell us about this takeover now of CBS News by Ellison and his appointment of this woman to become the president of CBS News?
Well, just before I came to New York to work for CBS, I was working in San Francisco for Rolling Stone, where I knew the one and only Hunter Thompson. And Hunter summed up the TV business in absolute perfect form. He said, the TV business is a cruel and shallow money trench through the heart of the journalism industry, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. And there is a dark side too.
Yeah, right.
And I have to say, then I worked for CBS for 12 years, and I worked for CNN for also about the same, and I worked for ABC. I worked for all of them, public television, and he's totally right. And I hesitate to predict what might happen because those were when I was there, it was still the old school and it was still the good old days. I came in at the sort of tail end of the golden age of television news, especially. I worked with Walter Cronkite, Charles Kuralt, Charles Collingwood, Diane Sawyer, these who became the giants of the business. And CBS News in particular, I'm sure everybody here knows, they kind of invented the business because these were all radio journalists. Walter Cronkite had been a radio reporter, and Edward R. Murrow, the lead editor of CBS News back during World War II, was a radio guy, and they had all been print reporters before that. Wire service. Walter Cronkite was a United Press wire service reporter. So these guys really, the motto of the Associated Press is deadline every minute. They knew how to get the news, and they knew how to report it, and they were not shy about the famous story of Eric Sevareid, another giant of the old days, who during World War II parachuted into Burma during the war, disappeared for 6 months. Nobody knew if he was dead or alive. And 6 months later, he comes dragging out of the desert with, 10 fantastic stories, all of them on film. God knows how he even managed to, or on tape, audio tape. This was radio days. God knows how he even managed to get the materials to do it. Anyway, that was then. This is now. Now, when I worked at CBS, CBS News had 24 foreign bureaus and 44 correspondents around the world, which is not a large number, but for a TV network, it is pretty large. Now, I think that CBS has 4 foreign bureaus, and that's it. They just recently closed the Tokyo bureau, as if not enough was happening in Tokyo. And after they had already closed Hong Kong, the Beijing bureau just had a part-time reporter there. I mean, it's really, so what happens is now the correspondent goes to the location for half a day, stands in front of a building, makes some report which is gleaned from the headlines of the local paper. They don't even interview anybody. They, and then they get back on the plane and go back to New York or London or wherever it might be. So it's a real mess. And the only real, in my view, there are only 2 real sources, or let's put it this way, not real, but reliable sources of real news that are doing it the old way. By far the most accurate and best staffed and most well-informed news agency in the world is Bloomberg. Bloomberg has over 800 correspondents all over the world, and they're really good. They, now of course it's mainly focused on business, but they cover the world really well. It's not real fancy, but they do a good job. And the other one is ProPublica, which is a whole different story. Now, Bloomberg, and these both have very unique financing methods, which I think becomes the key, because what changed between when I started at CBS and then the new regime. I started at the old CBS, which was still run by the founder of the company. We had to call him Mr. Paley. In those days, there were only 2 people in the world you had to refer to as Mr. And one of them was Mr. Paley, and the other one was the President of the United States, whoever it might be. Everybody else, last name only. You would just be Wasserman, Wasserman said, but Mr. Paley said. So anyway, in those days, news was not expected to make money. And you could make the case that the worst thing that ever happened in the news business was the success of 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes became the #1 show on television for many years because it's so good. And one year in the 70s, while I was still working in the networks, CBS reported a net profit thanks to the great profits raised by 60 Minutes advertising. And from that moment on, all news broadcasting was considered a possible profit center. So that was a disaster because it's very difficult to make money when you're flying people all over the world to get stories. So the slow deterioration of the news product, in my view, is completely attributable to the fact that it was expected to make money. Other factors were the repeal of the fairness doctrine and so on. So, and the elimination of the equal time rules. This was another thing that had tended to make the networks more balanced.
So Salty, did you ever run across Barry Weiss, this woman?
Barry Weiss was never, she has no experience in broadcasting. She was a New York Times editorial writer. She was on the opinion section of the New York Times, and she was a good writer. And by the way, interestingly, you were talking about gay marriage and so on, what political slot this put her in. Everyone is referring to her as a right winger. She herself considers herself center left, not center right. But she's written about this. She considers herself center left, and she says that the thrust of the new CBS, to the degree that she can change it at all, is going to be center right, center left, and center. It'll be what she calls the 70% of the American audience.
Well, so to me, what's happened, and everybody, this is why we're talking with Dave, who's always truly informative and entertaining, is that Larry Ellison, who may be as rich as Elon Musk, he's either the number one or two richest guy in the world, and his son are buying up a tremendous chunk of the major media, including, God forbid, CBS, which has always been the touchscreen of the media fortress in America. And the idea that this guy, Larry Ellison, who's apparently a very close friend, to the extent that Trump can have a friend, of Trump, is, he's taken over TikTok, CNN, and CBS. And you got to remember that Steve Bannon has been very clear that his goal for the right wing coup d'état here is to take over the media. When the troops march in to put in the dictator, the first place they go in the past has been the radio station.
Ellison is trying to take over Warner Discovery right as we speak, also.
Yeah, and obviously it's not to make money or just to make money. Just like Elon Musk had more than a financial agenda when he took over Twitter, and now we have, so the entire, or a huge chunk, or almost all of the American media is going to be owned by two billionaires who are very right wing, Elon Musk and Larry Ellison.
Well, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about Larry Ellison, but I actually know the guy fairly well. I did a film about Larry Ellison. I spent several weeks with him in his place in Northern California. I've traveled around with him, and I, like I say, when I was doing Pinnacle for CNN, I got deeply involved in the lives of many super successful people, including him. And he is now, depending on the time of day, either the richest or the second richest guy in the world, depending on what his stock is doing on a given day.
And he's brought his son in.
What?
He's brought his son in.
Yeah, his son is the chairman of Larry's the chairman of the board, and the son is the president of Oracle Inc., which now owns CBS and all these other properties. And they just bought the Redstone properties, which included Paramount and CBS. Paramount, by the way, is the old movie theater company.
Right.
But when I first started in the business, this would be even in the 60s, Paramount owned ABC. It was just the opposite. It was called ABPT, American Broadcasting Paramount Theaters. And they were a theatrical company that just happened to get involved in TV. But let me tell you about Larry Ellison.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do, yes.
Of what this guy is like. And I don't think you've ever heard a story. I had never heard a story like this. And I've heard a lot of stories. And I swear to you, every single thing I'm about to tell you is true. So Larry Ellison lives in a place in Northern California, which he how do you say this? He deconstructed board by board from an ancient 16th century village in Japan. He's very into Japan. And he rebuilt an ancient Japanese city on his property in the Silicon Valley. And he lives in this ancient Japanese village, and next to a giant American mansion, of course, but there's a complete functioning Japanese village there. Among other, and he told me this, he said he also has in the basement of one of the buildings on his property, he has a collection of priceless, museum quality collection, I should say, of priceless samurai helmets. One of a kind,
Hey,
Salty,
Salty, this is really in depth, and we're so happy to have you join us to explain this. But can you provide any insights into his character?
Oh, I'm sure he
That's what
will.
we're
Well,
waiting
I'm
for.
just about to. Yeah.
Yeah, please go
You
ahead,
want me
Dave.
to do it at some future time, or
No. We
How
need
about
to
right
now
now?
because Larry Ellison is about to take over the world. If you own
So-
CBS, so go ahead, please. Thank you for
I
that.
was just getting, Mike, you have a way of interrupting me just as I'm going to get to the punchline.
Go for it.
Milton Berle would hate you. He always steps on my punchline. What is with this guy? Anyway, so Larry Ellison told me that his favorite thing to do, deep in the middle of the night, was to take one of his priceless collection of samurai swords and go down to the basement where he had the helmets and take the sword and raise the sword like that and cleave one of those helmets in two.
So is he going to do that to any anchor person at CBS that attacks Trump?
I begged him to do it on camera.
So, but what now? How with Barry Weiss and Larry Ellison in charge of CBS? What do we expect from CBS?
Well, Barry Weiss's first official act has been to talk about a new program, which is going to be a debate show, right versus left. She announced that today. So,
Is she going to bring back Colbert to CBS?
no. And the reason I say no is because Colbert, being a comedian, does not fall under her purview, which is the news division. He's a comedian. He's entertainment. That belongs to the other guy, the guy from Good Morning America. It's a very here's why, in my opinion, this won't work. Barry Weiss is here. She reports directly to Larry Ellison, or I want to say
For
Larry.
the Sun.
Or directly to David Ellison. Yeah,
The Sun.
She's called editor-in-chief of CBS News. This is a new title that never existed before. There's a guy named, I'm blanking on his name now.
All right.
But he is the president of CBS News. And he reports, there's David Ellison, and then the guy below him is
Doesn't matter.
whatever.
So,
Anyway, there's a guy below him that reports to him, that reports to a guy named Cheeks, George Cheeks. And George Cheeks reports to David Ellison. So he's two rungs down the hierarchy ladder from where she is with respect to who gets to talk to the CEO. So this is this is Machiavelli at work. These are natural enemies. They will kill each other or do their best to do that.
so how right wing is CBS going to be, and how friendly to Trump are they going to be? Are we going to get anything resembling real news? And then we're going to go to Margot King and John
I
Stewart.
got to tell you, we haven't had anything resembling real news ever since, I'm going to say, ever since CNN and the other networks. CNN really started this. It was their fault. They instead of going out to get the stories and embedding their correspondents and producers in the story for some amount of time, which is required to get the story, they asked the story to come to them. So it's at CBS. The CBS morning program is a perfect example of that. We used to call it the wall of human flesh. There was a wall of reporters, and they would have some newsmaker come into the studio, and they would debrief this person instead of going out to the location, and instead of being Dr. Livingston, I presume. You know, the quote, Dr. Livingston, I presume, that was the very first reporter who went out to look for a guy who was
Right.
making news. So since then, you can't rely on the truth of anything you get on television, except from ProPublica, because they actually go out and still get the story on location, and
Well,
the other one, Bloomberg.
well, also Reuters, I think, has some good. But we're with Carl Grossman is on with us, a longtime professor of journalism as well. So
Yeah.
we've got the old guard here, and this is absolutely critical. We're at the top of the hour. I was going to go into nuclear stuff, but this is, the control of the news is control of the world. And as Steve Bannon has made clear, and we all know this, and Dave Saltman has been on the head of it for a long, long time. I have the distinction, by the way, of having been yelled at a public party, a party where a lot of people were at Walter Cronkite. He yelled at me because I questioned his reporting on nuclear power. He later he later apologized, but whatever. Margot and King and John Steiner, do you want to ask the great Dave Saltman something? And Carl Grossman, in your longtime profession as a journalist, you may want to jump in before we talk about nuclear stuff. Margot or John? Are you
Harvey?
on? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me, Harvey?
Please, yes, go ahead.
It's a slightly different subject, but it's highly relevant in this moment.
Okay.
I the bottom line is I would recommend that all of us on these calls are seriously endangered by getting either picked up by the feds, having our finances collapsed, our nonprofits shut down. And it started at the end of October with when the 3,000 groups put out a solidarity statement against what the administration was doing. And as we know, the memorandum countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence directs the FBI's National Joint Terrorism Task Force, DOJ, Treasury, Homeland Security, IRS, to investigate and disrupt what the administration deems domestic terrorism networks. It specifically calls out foundations, funders, and nonprofit organizations, and anyone who aids, abets, or works for them. And this is serious. And the idea that any of us are small fish or small potatoes, if you run a risk analysis, which I did with Perplexity, and I put it in the chat link, the risk is actually quite high. And they're so crazy right now. And when I talk to people about that and they actually look into it and they get it, they say, I need to find an attorney who knows this stuff and have that number on speed dial. And they're not kidding. And the only other thing I would say is I'm surprised at how surprised everybody is that this is happening. At least we sound surprised because this is what 2025 boys said was going to happen. And also, you have to be a student of global systems collapse and the meta crisis. This is how extractive democracy ends. It's exactly how it ends. And it's right on time if you look at other civilizations. So I suggest people get educated about that.
Well, will you put links in the chat? Also, we have No King's Day coming up. Is that October 18th, I believe?
Yeah,
What's the date on No King's Day?
I think you're probably right at the 18th.
Okay, so
But Harvey, I am seriously suggesting you switch to Signal's version of Zoom. Signal is the safest, it's most encrypted, and set up a chat group and send out information. Everything you're talking about is endangering any people who come on the call, and some people come on innocently, and some people don't care if they go to jail or their finances get torn down.
well,
But
in this case, I think there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I mean, people who think they're going to hide from this, and please stop. It's a regime, and I'm officially or whatever. I'm not happy with the term authoritarian. It's too weak. This is a dictatorship, and it's not an administration anymore. It's a regime. And Margot, what you're saying here is right on target. If you have any links to put in the chat, and we all have to be prepared for the worst. I mean, if they can send an airborne attack on an apartment building in Chicago with no warrants whatsoever and completely destroy the Fourth Amendment or ignore or whatever, and ignite the whole Constitution, there we go. So, Margot, thank you for that. Please
Well,
put all
Carvey,
those
I am
links in.
specifically talking about you protecting the people that come on this call.
Well, then put it in the chat, and everybody is forewarned. And
Okay.
absolutely, and that's one of the reasons I'm so preoccupied with the media here is that this if we don't have any kind of flow of information, this is classic, fascism. This is what do we got? Der Sturmer and Pravda, where once there was CBS. I mean, it's critical. Mike Hirsch, Dorothy Reich. Mike, did you want to?
That's how civilizations end. It's not surprising.
Exactly right.
I'd
Mark,
like to, I'd like to defer to Dorothy, please.
Dorothy, go ahead, please.
I just got from Democracy Docket that Utah just passed a gerrymandered map to rig the election in their state.
Right. The gerrymandering is, completely out of control. It does appear the polls are showing that the pro Democratic Party gerrymandering in California will probably go ahead. Whether that be enough, I mean, it kills me because the California system is actually the best, and now it's being torn apart for partisan reasons. And here we are, back at square one on gerrymandering. It's a nightmare. Ruth Strauss and then Carl Grossman, if you want to chime in, another old grizzled veteran of the journalism profession with Dave Saltman, that would be good. Ruth, go ahead. Ruth Strauss, are you
Oh, can you
muted again?
hear me? My connection
Yes, go
is
ahead,
kind
go
of
ahead,
unstable.
go ahead,
Can
go
you
ahead.
hear me?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? If not, I can come back on after I move closer.
Just
We
go
can hear
ahead.
you. We can hear you,
Go
Ruth.
ahead.
Please go ahead.
Hear me?
Oh, you're fading in and out again. So
I
Ruth,
can't hear you. I'll come back on when my connection's better. Thank
All
you.
right, go ahead. Carl Grossman, as a 40-year veteran of teaching journalism at Old Westbury on Long Island, I don't know if you've ever met Dave Saltman, but between the two of you, you have a couple of millennia in the news business. Do you want to comment on what Dave Saltman is saying about CBS here?
Well, he was there. He was on the scene, and what he relates is, in my experience, accurate of media. At SUNY Old Westbury, just retired from my full professorship. Was there for 47 years. I taught a course called Politics of Media, where I focused on who owns the media, racism in media, sexism in media, and so forth. I'm also on the board of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting and Associate of FAIR, which is one of the leading media watchdog groups in the United States. And I think what's being discussed here about Ellison and, for CBS to go down, I mean, this is the Tiffany network. This was the network of Edward R. Murrow. I mean, we've seen in recent days, the recent weeks, I shouldn't say co-optation of the Federal Communications Commission, but it's more extreme at this point in terms of being allied with very sinister forces than it's ever been. And it's the word being used often these days is a challenge, and it's more than a challenge. It's democracy is under threat, and to me, it feels like the 30s in Germany. And then moreover, I think it's very important. I just wrote a piece about the death of Jules Pfeiffer, an incredible cartoonist and so forth. And in a relatively recent interview before he died, he said the difference, now we're talking about the 50s United States, the McCarthy era, and now with Trump, is that McCarthy was a senator and Trump is a president with his finger on the button and his control of, I mean, at this point, virtually all of government, the executive branch and the legislative branch and the judicial branch all kowtow to or are manipulated by Trump. And basically all that's left in terms of checks and balances is a free press, which he repeatedly describes as enemies of the people. And now the focus is clearly trying to neutralize, trying to eliminate this problematic free press in the United States as the last of the check and balance system, the last monitor in the check and balance system. This is real difficult, unprecedented for this country at times.
Well, what media sources are left? You cite Bloomberg, ProPublica. There's a whole network of websites on the left. Carl and I just published a piece at Counterpunch, which is picked up by Free Press and Smirking Chimp, and Nation of Change will probably run it, and a few others. But the circulation is limited. What, if anything, can we rely on in the major media? He's buying CNN, right? Larry Ellison is buying CNN. There's our piece at the freepress.org today. Carl and I will talk about the content of that in a minute. Dave, is there anything left at all? They attacked PBS. They attacked NPR. Where do we go for news?
It's not easy. I mean, there are, there are thousands of podcasts now. Some of them are better than others. They're very, one day they're good, and one day they're off the beam, So that's one way to go. There used to be something called, my friend Tom Mucha used to run it. What was it called? Global. It was global. There have been a couple of. Here, the problem is to really run an international news gathering operation. That's a massive project. I mean, that's what. Think about what the CIA. That's a massive. The guy who actually designed the CIA's computer system also designed CNN's computer system. It's that scale of a job. And, the best way to do it, I mean, it depends on what you need. For republication, you have to, I mean, in my world anyway, you can't just take somebody's word blindly. You have to authenticate have to check every fact. That's a big job. So you build up your own sort of roster. Mila just posted on the chat. She's right. There are a lot of reliable, independent journalists. I don't know if there are a lot, but there are some. And Harvey, you know them. Roger Rappaport is a good example. Has been.
But in terms of public media, we're never going to have a moment where a Walter Cronkite comes out and ends the war in Vietnam, right? I mean, that's not going to. We don't have a good, reliable go-to source for important news anymore.
Well, he had to be convinced. Those guys were they were straight shooters. That's the thing. If we'd have a few more straight shooters, maybe that would just solve the problem right
Well,
there.
be careful what you say about shooters, but
Oh my God, I said that. didn't I?
reliable news.
That was only a euphemism.
Yeah. So, all
I
right.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, I used to back in the day. I used to read the French newspapers just to get a different take on things, and the people at CBS thought I was a real pretentious little jerk for doing that. But I tell you, a lot of stories that we ended up doing came out of there because they had really good coverage of the Middle East, for example, way better than the American press. And I don't know if they still do. I think it's a different story now.
So what we have now is what we didn't have before is a universe of podcasting and a universe of independent, lone cowboys out there and cow women, getting anybody can get on the internet now.
Yeah, but the problem is they're all sitting in their basement. They're all sitting in their basement. They're not out on location getting a story because it costs just to get on the plane and be in the hotel. Somebody has to give you $25,000 up front, So if you're just sitting in your basement, the news has to come to you and you have no way of verifying it. That's, in my view, the essence of the problem. That's what I meant by when I said the wall of human flesh. They would invite the newsmaker into the studio and they say, okay, tell us what's going on. But you had no way of verifying it. You couldn't go follow the guy around for a couple days.
Well, that's why Bloomberg is, if they're reliable, it's because they're in business.
That's the thing. They're in business, and they really. I know that on this broadcast, people are going to say, "Oh, because they're a bunch of right wingers." Okay, whatever. But the fact is, the reason that the Wall Street Journal's editorial news page is still pretty good, even though the editorial page has sucked wind for years, is because it's about money. And even guys like Ellison, you gotta get the real story if it's about money, because it's about money. So that actually works in a sense as a course correcting factor in business. And I think that is why Bloomberg is so good. It's about money. The facts are generally checkable, and they've got 800 people all over the world on location who know what they're doing.
Okay, well, Dave, thank you. That's tremendous. For me also in the news biz since college. By the way, Dave Saltman and he was on the campus radio station when I was on the Michigan Daily in Ann Arbor in the late '60s, and Carl is of course much younger than we are, but for news dogs, the idea of a multi-billionaire owning CBS is terrifying to me. Absolutely terrifying.
But William Paley, you got to remember William S. Paley, the founder of CBS, was a cigar salesman. That's what he did. He sold cigars, and back in 1927, I think it was, he realized that the radio would be a really good way to promote his cigar business. So he bought 6 radio stations, dirt cheap. Nobody listened to the radio in 1927, or hardly anybody. Remember, the first presidential campaign to be covered by radio wasn't until, I think it was 24, the 24.
Right.
So, it wasn't a big thing. He bought these 6 little stations. He sold the hell out of the cigars, and the radio stations became bigger and bigger. It became CBS Radio.
Right.
And he had the good luck to have World War II break out on his watch, and he sent Edward R. Murrow to London. But Paley was a smart guy and a very visionary guy, and he made it very clear that there was to be no transfer between the business end of CBS, the cigar business and advertising, and the news end. He saw that the reason people came to CBS was because the news was believable and accurate.
Wow.
So he was more of You got to have someone with that kind of vision. Whether Larry Ellison has it, he's a very disturbed guy. He's the first guy to tell you he didn't know who his mother was until he was 40 years old. You know,
Oh my God.
he had a rough life.
Right. And Donald Trump did know who his mother was, and that was a problem.
I
So,
cannot explain that guy.
yeah, right. Well,
So,
this has been fascinating. I hope everybody else is fine. We still have 65 people. I mean, to me, this is the hardcore. You know, in a world built on information, the information business in the world is now much bigger
yeah,
than oil and gas. It's
absolutely.
much bigger than energy. The number one industry in the world is information, and it's only going to get more so. I mean, but the question is, will the internet be able to be used to counter the monopolization of the old networks? That's really the core, as
I
far
think
as I
it
can
could
tell.
be. I mean, you
This
see,
this podcast, this Zoom call is living proof of that.
yeah, it is. You're right.
We're not, you know, we're about one. Our annual budget is about 1 millisecond of what CBS is. So, and here we are. Of course, we have 65 people, which to me is a lot. And we go on YouTube, and who knows what.
The
Carl,
cost of production is basically nil. So,
Carl and I just put out a piece, which we think is a world-changing piece on the impact of drone technology on nuclear power. And we put it up at Counterpunch and Free Press. Who knows where it'll go? I don't know. So the question now becomes, where is the power? Is the power at CBS or is the power in the internet?
well, you know, I saw some of the similar questions on the chat here. You know, the network evening newscasts, they're not what they were once, but they still have a significant audience. I mean, it's very common to get an audience of 10 million or more on the nightly news. That's a lot of That's just Americans. That's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a big number.
Well, let's see. I mean, this is what we're doing here. Ruth Strauss, did you ever finally get through, and then Dorothy Reich?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
go quick now.
okay. Yeah. So PBS has a perfect record, NPR, perfect record that, you know, I get pissed off at them every single time I listen to them. And today they interviewed John Woo about what he would do about the cities. Okay. I mean, you know, like they say, you can't make this stuff up. And then, you know, Lawrence O'Donnell has been marvelous about calling out the New York Times and, you know, their quote unquote sane washing whatever Trump says. But I mean, this is going to be a really naive comment on my part, but where is the effing FTC? I mean, I don't even know who runs it, and I'm sure it's run by a Trump toady, but they've been missing in action for decades, or at least, you know, they've been certainly missing in action through Obama, Bush, and all of that. So
You mean
I'm
the
very
federal?
upset about that. The last
Okay.
thing is, was it Glass-Steagall that Bill Clinton
Yes,
messed up?
it was.
Because that's also a crux of a problem. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then now we have this guy who's the head of the Federal Communications Commission, who's a total Trump toady, as we all know. And we'll see what happens. Dorothy Reich, thank you, Ruth. Dorothy Reich, and then
So, you know,
move on.
people who know me know that every morning I send out an email full of articles from sources that people don't necessarily go to. But The Intercept is doing really good reporting. Jeremy Scahill on Substack. There's a lot of good stuff on Substack. Your friend Aaron Parnas is on there
Lev,
repeatedly.
yeah, and his son is Aaron, yeah.
Truth Out, Common Dreams. American Prospect has done incredible reporting. Dave Dayan and his people. There's still The Nation is still out there. They're under threat, but they're still out there. All sorts of European and Middle Eastern papers. You know, France 24. You can go to Al Jazeera, Middle East Eye, Electronic Intifada. There's no need to rely just on American news, you know, regular newspapers. There's information all over. Even I'm looking at the National Review. It's got some good writing.
But
all
you
kinds
know,
of
we're
stuff.
talking about Dorothy. We're talking about people, an elite that has internet access. What about the mainstream people who just got to turn on the TV and get the news, which has
Well,
been
I turn
CBS,
on sometimes Channel 7, I get the news. It's very milk toast. It's not left, it's not right, it's not anything. It just
right?
shows what's going on, and it doesn't make any comments about it. So it's not
But who in the major
biased. But
media?
one other thing, MSNBC. Thank God for MSNBC. They're still going. And I think everybody should have their TV tuned on all day, every day, even when they're not home, to MSNBC, and make sure we keep their ratings up, because
Well, who
they're
owns
what we
NBC
got.
now? Who owns
What?
NBC?
MSNBC, they're splitting off from NBC. They're going to be MS something else, but I don't know how they're going to stay in business. But we need to keep them in business, because
Right,
without them, they're the one thing that's on TV. is
right.
MSNBC.
And what's going to happen to
And
Colbert?
also, Free Speech TV is on TV, available on television.
Right, and we
You
have
can
this
get
call. Thank
democracy
God.
value.
Well, also we have Pacifica, which is really been a
Radio,
nightmare,
yeah,
and we
yeah.
need to
Mhm.
get Pacifica squared away so that it can do what needs to be
And
done
for
to get the word
podcasts,
out.
the Nation has podcasts. Ian Masters has an incredible background
Right,
briefing.
but we're talking about
That's
known left.
online. You can get that.
We're talking about known left outlets. I mean, people who have, like us, who have the internet and all this other stuff and are used to doing this, we can find what we need to find. That's not a problem. The problem is who reaches the mainstream of the American public. It used to be CBS, NBC, ABC, and then it was CNN jumped in. And now what do we got? And then came
MSNBC.
Twitter and Facebook. And I guess the majority of the American public gets its information now from
Yeah,
social media. Well, who owns
from
social media?
TikTok and Instagram.
Well, Larry Ellison is now going to own TikTok and Instagram.
Right.
And Zuckerberg, groveling at Trump's feet, he owns Facebook, and Twitter is owned by Elon Musk. So where is the mainstream of the American public going to get information that's important? Who actually covers this assault on the apartment building in Chicago? Who's covering it? Is it on NBC News or ABC or CBS?
It's on MSNBC, that's for sure.
Well, we don't. Okay, but then who's going to protect ABC, NBC? Who's protecting these guys? And where is Colbert going to go? In my world, of course,
Go online.
I'd love to see Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and Jon Stewart get together and form a network. Carl Grossman, do you think that could happen, or Salty?
And what do you call it? Jon Stewart, the Daily Show is on TV every day, and it provides more news than most of the news shows.
But who watches it? Who carries it?
A lot. It's on Paramount, and a lot of people watch it, and a lot of young people watch it.
But Larry Ellison now owns Paramount.
Well, let's see if he dares to cancel it. He's not canceling South Park's on there too.
All right. I know this is a preoccupation or an obsession, but to me, the news is everything. Because
I know I'm watching it all day long, every day.
well, there you go. But then what happens to the mainstream of the American people who watch, a few minutes here and there?
Well, I think they're finding out when they walk in the street and they see a guy with a gun, with a rifle.
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't.
They're getting it live. They're getting it live. They don't have to watch it on TV anymore.
Mike Hirsch and Steve, and then we're going to go. This is, to me, has been a fantastically important discussion. I hope the rest of you have. But I've been a journalist all my life, and I've known Dave Saltman and Carl Grossman almost all my life. So there you go. Mike Hirsch and then Steve Caruso, and then we're going to do a bit of time on nuclear. Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Sluggo, and also thank you, Dorothy. I think you two were talking past each other because Sluggo, I think you were raising the point. If somebody is not really highly motivated to inform themselves, and maybe they'll watch the evening news. The problem is the evening news isn't what it used to be. And Dorothy, you're absolutely right. If people take some initiative and poke around and can afford cable, which is increasingly expensive, or the internet, which is increasingly expensive, and a lot of people don't do that, or they'll go on the internet and they'll find some cesspool of right-wing propaganda. So, it's Sluggo, your points are very well taken, and I wish I could be as optimistic maybe as some people are. But, part of the reason we're in this mess is that the claim decades ago was the mainstream media was left-wing because facts had a liberal bias, so to speak. And therefore, we needed an answer, a right-wing infrastructure between Fox and Rush Limbaugh and all those others. And now, Charlie Kirk patterned himself after Rush Limbaugh, and we saw how successful that was.
I interviewed Rush Limbaugh once. He told me he was an entertainer.
Yeah, well,
That's what he
that's what they fall back on when you catch them lying. Oh, these
So
are
is-
just jokes, folks.
So is
Yeah.
Fox. Fox is listed and registered as an entertainment business.
But yet the corporate overlord is News Corp. And I think that, we just have to figure out and just face up to the fact that we're dealing with an okey doke here. It's Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It's if you think it's funny, it's a joke. If you take it seriously, it's news. And they've been getting away with this for a long time, claiming that the corporations that own our mainstream media are left leaning. They are not.
Somebody
they-
wants to know what's an okey doke.
It's when people get they like Neil Young said they offer you this, but they give you that. It's a scam. We're being bamboozled, and we take it as on faith that ABC, CBS, NBC are right down the line. They're neutral or even left leaning. And why? Because they're generally against racism and sexism and homophobia. But that doesn't mean that they're liberal, because they're union busters and they push a very right-wing corporate agenda. And the same is true of the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times. And now it's going to get worse. Ellison's a maniac. I don't care if he's a nice guy and has like an impressive Japanese city on his property. The fact that he's cleaving priceless heirlooms just for his own weird fascination shows he's got, a whole lot of problems. And I don't want him deciding what people can see and can't see, what we can hear and not hear. And I don't trust him.
But look at the media now. We got, as I said, we got Twitter owned by Elon Musk. Facebook now, Zuckerberg is now a right winger, as if he was ever not. Ellison is going to own CBS, CNN, TikTok, Paramount. It's like, my God, where are we going to get our information? Steve Caruso, go ahead.
Yeah, so Facebook owns Instagram, WhatsApp, and they also own Facebook app, obviously. You can spend hours and hours and hours on there. I did so. I wasted my time, years, endless, decades on Facebook getting crumbs from nobody. Okay. That's it. And I just got sick of it. Then I hear he wants to build another data center and power it with gas, natural gas. And I'm not adding to this. I don't want this to happen. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's go
Gary
ahead, Steve.
Crane wanted to talk. I don't know if you got time.
Well,
for him
first
today,
we're going to
but-
go with the nuclear thing, and then we'll give Gary some time at the end. As we discussed, Carl Grossman, you and I have put out a piece, and that was an amazing discussion, by the way. And you will find in these calls that I am very much a student of the news business and have been since I was on the Michigan Daily in 1965. Forgot, what is that? That's 60 years ago. Oh my God. Carl Grossman and I have put out a piece. It's posted at freepress.org, Counterpunch, and a few others about, drone warfare and nuclear power. And here we have the big money prancing in to take over the news media. Thank goodness that Carl and I can get pieces like this published. Thank goodness for the freepress.org, for Counterpunch, for Smirking Chimp, Nation of Change, Daily Kos. There is a universe of alternative internet outlets, and we have 54 people with us right now on this one. Carl, do you want to very quickly give us a quick summary of what the piece says?
Well, starting off, Bennett Ramberg wrote a book. A updated edition was published last year, University of California Press. But 45 years ago, his book, Nuclear Power Plants as Weapons for the Enemy, an Unrecognized Military Peril, was prescient. And what the piece is about is his nuclear power plants being pre-deployed weapons of mass destruction, indeed targets for the enemy. And what Russia has been doing in Ukraine is an example of that. I mean, beyond the issues of we don't need nuclear power, solar, wind, so forth, can provide all the energy we need. The incredible expense of nuclear power, the string of accidents which will continue. Beyond all that, again, nuclear power plants, like Ramberg said, are targets for an enemy during war, and that's another leading reason why they should all be shut down. I mean, I wish it was not so, but I think war will continue on this earth, and as long as there's nuclear power plants, at this point, 400 of them, and a push for hundreds and hundreds more, we're facing, and it's not to be hyperbolic, but we're facing the word catastrophe, and catastrophe don't describe what we're facing.
So I was thinking today, ironically, Carl, that actually drone warfare has now made renewable energy absolutely imperative. You know, worldwide, more than 90% of the new energy capacity is solar, wind, geothermal, batteries, and other forms of, well, tidal, geothermal, and ocean thermal. That's about it. And the bottom line is, you can't, what the Ukrainians have shown by their drone attacks on Russia, as anybody with a drone can wipe out a fossil fuel network. The drones won't hurt coal that much, but coal is gone, and gas and oil are completely vulnerable to drone attacks. I mean, the Ukrainians have hit gas refineries and oil refineries 1,300 miles from their border with Russia. And if the Russians lose this war, I hope they do. It will be in large part because the Ukrainians have been able to decimate their gas and oil business with drones. You can't protect an oil refinery from a drone, or a gas pipe. You can't protect a gas pipe from a drone. I mean, that's not something I would ever want to do. But the Ukrainians, if they've had a leg up in this war, it's because Putin is totally dependent on gas and oil, and they can wipe him out with drones. Conversely, the Russians and Putin are threatening all nuclear plants with drone attacks. You can't defend a nuclear power plant from a drone. And we've seen these 6 reactors at Zaporizhia, which were in Ukraine, and now are being, like Putin is the first guy in history to steal a nuclear power plant. They've cut the wires from Zaporizhia, which provided a very substantial percentage of the energy being used in Ukraine. They've cut the wires from Zaporizhia going into Ukraine, and they're in the process of replacing those wires with a wire going into Russia. So basically what they're doing is they're taking 6 reactors, God knows how many $billion, well, net present value, if you assess an operating 1,000 megawatt or more nuclear plant, It's worth about $10 billion minimum. If you've stolen 6 atomic reactors at Zaporizhzhia, it's a $60 billion theft. That's the biggest heist in human history. And what he's doing is he's cutting the wires from Zaporizhzhia to go into Ukraine and putting up a wire to send the power into Russia. But God help us if they try and restart those reactors. I mean, the 6 reactors at Zaporizhzhia have been shut, and they are completely dysfunctional, and they'll never work and blow up, God forbid, if they start to try and reuse them again.
But
So,
very important is that as we speak, they don't have any longer external power. And so if the water doesn't keep circulating in the fuel pools, in the cores of these reactors, and all they have to keep all the water has to keep circulating are backup diesel generators dependent on diesel fuel. And if they stop working, we're talking about a spent fuel pool disaster actually is more serious than a catastrophic accident at a nuclear power plant, because a spent fuel pool is loaded with so-called spent fission products.
right. And the bottom line is that every reactor in the world is vulnerable to a drone attack. You cannot protect even the newest atomic reactor from a drone attack. And that means that there are 94 pre-deployed weapons of mass destruction licensed to operate in the United States in the form of nuclear power plants. And not one of them can be protected from a Putin or a random terrorist that wants to destroy our country. And the number one target would be Diablo Canyon in California, because it is upwind of the whole country. And the predominating winds in the United States are west to east. And if, God forbid, Diablo Canyon, which is surrounded by a dozen earthquake faults, would ever be hit with a drone, our country is toast. I mean, we're done. The radioactivity from Chernobyl, which is deep in Europe, obviously, was detected twice crossing the United States from west to east. And in the first instance, it clearly killed birds in the sanctuary, Point Reyes Sanctuary, north of San Francisco. And then it was discovered in milk, detected in milk in New England. So, God forbid, if Putin ever wanted, or anybody else, ever wanted to do maximum damage to the United States, all he's got to do is deploy a drone to, I don't even want to say it, but that's the reality. Just as the Ukrainians are now doing to his oil and gas business. So, forewarned is forearmed on this. Please take a look at our piece at freepress.org and Counterpunch. Steve Caruso, go ahead, please.
Yeah, there was a fire at the Chevron plant recently on the West Coast. Did they ever
Yeah.
figure out what's going on with that? What
Well,
happened? That could have been.
gas prices are skyrocketing now on the West Coast. This is a very significant a
It's not that
refinery.
they're not high enough already there. I mean, it's a liberal state. Why should the gas prices be low there, right?
Well, gas prices in California have been about twice what they are in Ohio and the East Coast. I mean, they're in the $6 range, or have been, and they're probably going to go up. I mean, gas prices in the East are in the $3 range. But with this fire at Chevron, which is apparently a very big refinery, and God knows how it started. But then gas prices here, I mean, in California, is just going to skyrocket. But I will say this, the drone attacks that the Ukrainians have leveled in Russia are against the petrochemical industry, against the oil and gas industry, from which Putin derives most of his cash flow, have been absolutely devastating. And somehow the Ukrainians have managed to hit a facility 1,300 miles from the border with Ukraine. I mean, that is staggering. That means basically, if you want to, you can hit You know, you can be, God knows where your country is, you can be very, very far away. And the same is true of the whole world now. There's a lot of press from Reuters and elsewhere about the drone threat to the nuclear plants. Chernobyl was hit by a drone, but they thankfully had a sarcophagus over the old reactor that's still burning. And then Zaporizhzhia's been hit by a drone. And you got 6 reactors sitting next to one and one another. They're all going to go. I mean, there were 4 at Fukushima. They all went. There were actually 6 at Fukushima, but 2 were up on a mountain or on a bluff 60, 70 feet away in the air. But the ones at Zaporizhzhia, they're all sitting right next to each other. And God forbid, as Carl well knows, any one of those reactors be put out of commission by a drone, which could be done with about $1,000. It's about a really powerful drone. You can get a drone actually for 400 these days. So all 400 reactors in the world, all 94 reactors in the United States are completely vulnerable to this. Absolutely terrifying. Carl, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, I think in our piece we note this is not a new idea. Hitting a nuclear plant as an act of war. When the 9/11 terrorists were planning their attack, the Indian Point nuclear power plants, just 25 miles north of New York City, were seen as a target. They decided, and the 9/11 Commission's report details this, they decided, well, we're going to hit the World Trade Center instead. But next time it might not be instead. Next time it easily could be. It could be tomorrow in war, a nuclear power plant being hit. We talk about in our piece Iraq bombing Iran's nuclear power plant 6 times between 1984 and 1987. And in 1991, during the Persian Gulf War, the U.S. Bombing 3 nuclear reactors in Iraq. I mean, and many other examples
Right.
there are. And again, sooner or later, and we're now in the midst of this, the renaissance of nuclear power. Trump wants to quadruple the nuclear power production in the United States by 2050. That's 25 years from now. Is that going to mean 4 times the 94 reactors that we have now? Probably some will be smaller ones, but still here we're going to, in coming years, unless it's stopped as it should be stopped, be met with a torrent of new nuclear power. And that means a torrent of new targets in the event of war.
Absolutely. And I want to say, I want to urge Ukraine. I realize I'm an outsider, but there are 4 reactors under order for new reactors for Ukrainians. And I really like to see them cancel those as soon as possible and pledge to go 100% renewable. We have Gary Crane with us. I'm going to give Gary the last 10 minutes. Yes, Lynn Feinerman, the U.S. also bombed Iraq. The Israelis bombed Iraq's reactor, but it was before it went online, thank God. And it's unbelievable. Steve Caruso, then we'll go to Gary Crane. Steve?
Yeah, they're privatizing the nuclear targets for terrorists. So there you go. You think the private industry is going to have all the safeguards? And not that we have any now, but
No,
also you have
they have no liability.
The gift of plutonium to all these new plants from Trump. So here, I'll put it up on the screen and I'll let you go.
No, please. Thank you for that. Okay, we got 10 minutes left. Gary Crane, are you with us? Gary, did you want to jump in and tell us about your organizing, please? Gary Crane?
Yeah, hi, I'm just unmuting.
Okay, go for it, Gary. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm just trying to show my video. I have to keep my video hidden.
No video, please. You had points and I told you no
It's
video.
YouTube.
I didn't see that. Okay, sorry. Anyway, since I only have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, please.
Yeah. I just am really here to get people's feedback from the piece I wrote a few weeks ago that Harvey sent out to all of you last week. So if any of you have some feedback, because it's certainly not enough time for me to explain it all with 10 minutes.
Explain what you can, please. Give us a quick summary.
Well, I've been always amazed for quite a while. I'm a nonviolent resistance scientist, and my PhD's in psychology. And I've been rather amazed that I think you all know the Erica Chenoweth research about how nonviolent resistance, massive nonviolent resistance, where you get 3.3% of the population actively involved in shutting down the country, has been the most effective method for basically removing, overthrowing fascist regimes. A couple of facts that a lot of people don't know is, and it's rather amazing because you see everybody very much focused on the 2026 elections and 2028 elections, is that fascist regimes are very, very rarely ever overthrown, replaced by elections. They always like elections. Putin has elections, but they always make sure they're rigged. And if you read the Mother Jones article that came out a few weeks ago, they now have 10 different methods for rigging the 2026 and 2028 elections. And with people like Larry Ellison getting the kind of power they're having, it'll be electronically easier than ever before. So the other fact is that, well, those are the two major facts that counting on elections rarely works. So my passion has been to find out how can we make a nonviolent resistance, a national nonviolent resistance, able to shut down a civic uprising. How can we actually make that feasible? Because I think the major problem there is that most people feel, well, this isn't the 1930s. People aren't angry enough. There's not high rates of unemployment. I just don't see that you're going to get 12 million people out willing to risk arrest. And so I've put together on the first page a list of 11 arguments summarized, and then in detail on the following 5 pages, why, in fact, it's actually quite feasible to have a national nonviolent resistance. And this is partially due to two developments tech-wise that make it much easier for people to be courageous. One of them was something my team developed a couple of years ago that's been beta tested that showed that you actually can catalyze moral courage at scale very simply. And then another are mutual aid apps that are being developed right now that make it much easier if someone's on a long-term strike or they're a leader of a nonviolent resistance effort and therefore are given a longer than the usual 1 or 2 day jail sentence, but they're put away for 2, 3, 4 months and they're worrying about rent. Mutual aid solutions that will solve that problem. But there are also 9 other reasons why it's much more feasible than ever before. So if anybody are there 2 or 3 people that read the article and could give me some
Just
feedback?
keep going through and explain what's in here. Steve, if we can post this or post the link at freepress.org. It's very fascinating.
It was sent out last week. You sent it out last week, so there might be some people that have done the
okay,
work.
but if you can lay out in your time, you got 8 more minutes, which is a lifetime on this call.
The link
Tell
is
us,
in the
please,
chat. It's on the screen.
It's on the screen. It's in the chat. How do we, with nonviolent resistance, overcome fascism in the United States? Let's hear it.
Okay. I just don't want to thank you, by the way, very much for giving me these 8 more minutes.
Go ahead. Tell us.
I just don't want to be rude to the people that were hoping to give some feedback, but my email is in the chat. So those of you that did take the trouble, I hope you'll email me because I really, really I cherish constructive criticism. So the first one is about what I talked about, is that some very simple software development. It's basically what's called a ladder of engagement that pretty much every campaign has. It's usually the steps that the campaign tries to get people to go through, that they'll make a donation or they'll sign up to come to a meeting or they'll sign up to go to a protest. And I just, after interviewing a couple hundred people who are very angry about this and about that, and I would give them a hypothetical scenario of a major nonviolent resistance action that could possibly solve that. Let's say a lot of the people I interviewed were angry about Medicare. This was like 3 years ago, were angry about the lack of Medicare in the country. So I said, well, what if there was 150,000 people, enough to shut down Congress for 2 weeks until they passed Medicare for all? Would you come? And I discovered that people that were on a 10-point scale of anger, and then I asked them the question about coming down to coming down to DC, willing to risk arrest. People that are at a 3 or 4 level, which is, which was about more than half the people I talked to, very few people would say, yes, I would do it. I would ask them, well, what's stopping them? What would they need? And I discovered that there were 5 basic things people needed that would move that hesitancy to a yes. So the first one was, well, I need to know if you're going to get that other 120,000 people. If you can get 100, 115, 110, 80,000 even, I'll do it. The second thing is I need a friend to go with me. The third thing is I need to know that if I did end up getting in jail, that you have a lawyer team that'll get me out. The fourth is I want to know what the police are going to be like. And the other thing was I need to know that this is not going to hurt my professional license, either keeping one or getting one. And the last one was I'm a struggling working class or I'm a student. It's going to cost too much on the train and the bail. I need financial help. Well, all these things can be algorithmically answered within seconds. So, and we beta tested this with the largest Keep It in the Ground campaign in all of Europe, and it immediately doubled their resistor recruitment rates. And we didn't even have the most powerful one, which that first one I mentioned, which is called conditional commitment, which is if you get enough other people, then I'll join. And my lead programmer, and there's lots of other research, showed that if we added that, we would have quadrupled the resistor sign-up rates. And this, by the way, was with a very bad tactic they were using, which was stopping people from getting to work by shutting down major streets. And when I talked to Germans in Berlin, and I said, well, what if we switch the tactic to shutting down the Bundestag, their parliament? Almost everybody said, well, definitely, I would do it. So this one simple technique alone could probably multiply resisted rates by at least 10 times. And then the second thing was I mentioned the numbers. If you just look at the numbers of people that have taken early retirement from age 55 on up, and you combine those with numbers of students, Gen Zers, that are in high school or in college, you've already got more than 70, 75 million people, which is 6 times what you need. Again, the Chenoweth level is 12 million. So the numbers are there. And of course, half of those people may be for Trump or totally apathetic. So you cut that down to 35, you still have 3 times what you need. And then the argument number 3, can you roll down to number 3? Grigri?
Go ahead.
So it's good, every day that passes by, there's going to be more and more people angry with Trump. So that's just going to increase our numbers. Number 4, I already talked about mutual aid apps being developed. This is going to be, there are already lots of apps out there that are helping immigrants. So if they hear ICE knocking on their door, they can immediately get lots of people throughout the whole neighborhood coming to the rescue and at least being observers and so forth. So it doesn't take much other coding. And AI, of course, makes it much faster to quickly create a mutual aid app that's geospecific based, so that if you needed help with rent and you wanted to help your neighbors, you can immediately get that. Somebody's waiting to get into the room, by the way, Michelle.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I'm working on trying to develop another app that makes it a lot easier for people who would like to be grassroots organizers. Right now, if you want to be a grassroots organizer and you're a barista or you work in a fast food place or something that's pretty meaningless, but survival necessary, but you really have the passion to be another AOC, some kind of an organizer, your only option is GoFundMe, which is very, very limited. So with Adopt an Organizer, if you check it out, can make it much, much easier, much, much faster. And I can talk more about that when people contact me. And that would give us an army of 1,500 organizers, which is what you really need. Most of the major movements of the 20th century have required at least 1,000 to 2,000 organizers.
All right. So Gary, listen, we're going to have you back to complete this. Everybody, if you'll take a look at this document, it's now 3:58, and we have a time definite today at 4. But Gary, this is really fascinating stuff, very interesting. I want to encourage everybody to stay. Gary, if you'll put the link in the chat, and we'll take another look at it, and I'll give you more time at the end of the next week's call.
Thank you
is
so
really
much.
important stuff.
Yeah. I just want to say all the problems we're talking about are just, it's all bullshit unless you have a national civic. It's the only thing that's going to save it. It's the only thing that's going to turn the media, the conglomerization of media, all these things around, is through a national civic uprising. So that's the question. How do we make that happen?
Okay, we do have October 18th, no King's Day coming up. Gary will give you another 10 minutes next week. Everybody, if you can look at Gary's document, Steve will put up the link, or Gary, you can put it in the chat.
It's
Thank you
there at
very much.
6:38. I posted it at 6:38.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We still have 47 people with us. It's 4 o'clock. It's time to go. We will be back again next week. Gary Crane will be with us. And this has been an amazing session. Once again, this is an astonishing time, and we have to resist. Everybody, and thank you, Margot, for that warning. And we'll be back again next week, everybody. No nukes. We'll see you in Solartopia. Ukraine, cancel those nuclear orders, please. And we need to stand up to the fascist regime. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Steve Caruso, Mike Hirsch, and everybody else.
Thanks so much, Harvey.
See you next week.
And everybody make sure you're registered to vote. And if you haven't registered, get your neighbors, get your friends, get it done. That's it. It's democracy. It's in your hands. Thank you.
Take care. No nukes. See you in Solartopia next week.